Parliament is expected to look at the report of the Joe Gatti-led committee that investigated the bribery allegations against the chairman of the House's Appointments Committee. We know that the issue was brought to the attention of the Speaker by the chairman of the committee, Joe Osei-Wusu, who had raised concerns following those allegations that were raised by Mahama Yariga, as well as two other MPs who also belong to the committee. Well, we want to look at the issues in a better perspective, but also looking at it more introspectively, as we have Dr. Edward Brenya. He is a political scientist with the Political Science Department of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. A very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
Oh, good morning. And it's good to have you on the line. Now the Parliament is about to look at the report of the Joe Gatti-led committee. Would it, in any way, if you look at the aesthetics of it, perhaps rate people's minds and perceptions about perceived corruption or not in Parliament, as far as this is concerned?
Good morning, and good morning to the able listeners of Joy. I think that we can look at the possibilities of three scenarios in terms of the report. The first scenario is the report coming out to actually confirm the allegation that was made by Honorable Ayariga and co. that yes, indeed there was bribery. That happened, and then the alleged individual was the one that actually gave out the money. If that should be the case, then of course, we are going to have a situation where the public, who has been very interested, who had always cast a doubt in the ability of Parliament to investigate itself and come out with true findings, Parliament would have been vindicated in a way that, yes, we can trust the Parliament that can actually point out negatives if it has to do with one of their own. The second scenario, which I think the public may not be very much interested in, is if at the end of the day, Parliament should come out and say, the report of the committee comes out saying, no, we investigated, nothing happened, those that made allegations were telling lies. Of course, a job would have been done. But if we gauge the public opinion from the time that this allegation was made and Parliament set up this committee, we realize that that's not going well with majority of the public, because then it's going to be like, oh yes, we said it, and now let's see the outcome. Parliament trying to cover one of their own, their wrongdoing. A possible third scenario, which I think, for me personally, which I think may be what I see as possible as coming out from this report, is where there is a neutrality in terms of the report. That is where the report would affirm the fact that there was some money given out, but the money not coming from the source that was alleged to have come from, one of normal payments that were made, but there was miscommunication, in a way trying to appease both sides and to prevent any of those sides going out to seek extra redress outside Parliament, which I believe Parliament didn't want in the first place. But what I think is that either of these, there is going to be an implication on Parliament. Either Parliament gets itself cleared of the negative perception that the public had had of it by way of them affirming the alleged bribery. Either Parliament having that negative perception crystallized by way of them rejecting the allegation, or coming out with something that is neutral to a larger extent, getting the public divided on, well, maybe Parliament got it right or it didn't get it right. These are the three scenarios, and the likely implications that I see.
The other question that has been raised, and I believe within the period of which the committee was doing its work, was the substantive about whether Parliament in itself needed to investigate its own members, whether for their conduct or any other, really. What really is a merit in those sort of questions?
I think that narrative has a historical undertone. Okay. It is because many feel that Parliament on several occasions had not presented what the public expects in terms of the truth when anytime it's investigated itself. And that's why they thought that since in the past we have not seen Parliament meet that requirement of being able to present the truth, then of course maybe a neutral an institution or agency would have done a better job of trying to present the true picture. You see, it is so unfortunate, and sometimes I've seen that the public is not being fair, because you look as if we already preached that in this case, that if you are gauging the public opinion, only one answer would be accepted to the public, and that is the fact that, yes, there was this. It looked like the public do not believe Parliament can do a justice, and in this case, justice means actually telling if there was this allegation turned out to be true, Parliament being able to charge. Already we have been having allegations that is pointing toward that direction, where it is said that in terms of calling witnesses, that there two other people that were actually key witnesses to Ayariga were not invited to give their evidence during the committee hearing, which in a way is pointing to what the speculation of the negativity of public opinion, or if you will, of the likelihood that public opinion will not accept anything other than we did find that it's okay. That is why what sometimes pushes me to think that Parliament trying to water down this by, to a larger extent, accepting the fact that there was money, but probably miscommunication as to the source of money, in a way that it will appease both sides in a way.
Well, we have to say thank you to you for this discussion, and also helping us look at the outcome. And we'll hope that after the report is discussed and we know the outcome, we can call you and then we'll have further discussions on the subject. Have a good morning. Dr. Edward Brenya is a political scientist with the Political Science Department of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. But we know that Parliament is expected to debate this morning the report of the Joe Gatti-led committee that was investigating alleged bribery allegations against the chairman of Parliament Appointment Committee. We have to take a break. When we come back, we'll have great discussions for you. Well, we have on the line Vitus Azim. He's an anti-corruption campaigner, but a former executive director for the Transparency International wing of Ghana. That's Ghana Integrity Initiative. A very good morning to you, Mr. Vitus Azim.
Yeah, good morning.
Now, what would you expect the outcome of the committee's report to be? I mean, preemptively.
Well, considering that parliamentarians would always want to protect themselves, and considering that it's an internal investigation, I don't expect any indictment on anybody. Because an indictment on one person would affect the rest of Parliament. And we know in the past they've always tried to protect each other.
But that is also to say you would have wished that another entity or body had done the investigations.
Yes, that has always been my stand. You see, when something happens in Parliament or in an institution, and you ask the very members of that institution to do the investigation, you already create an environment of suspicion around the whole issue. Because we are human beings, and there's a general tendency to always try to suppress information that will indict your image. So that has always been my stand since this thing happened, not only with this thing, but with the police cases and all that. We always think that it's better to have a neutral person or a neutral body doing the investigation.
How would you say has been, how well or not the Joe Gatti-led committee has undertaken the investigations? Because we know it was publicly screened.
Well, it was public, but we don't know what discussions would normally take place before and after the public sittings. You know, before we even started the investigation, the chairman was also a nominee that was supposed to appear before the committee. And some of us raised the issue that it was already a conflict of interest situation. First, you are a member of the committee, and you are a nominee that is going to appear before the committee. And so that was already a situation where we thought that the chairman should have recused himself, but of course he went ahead. And so that was already the problem. So that is there. Of course, it's good that they have started in public, but we don't know what happens before and after the public sittings. And a lot of the outcome will depend on those issues and not what was put in the public domain.
What do you make of this, adding up to the lot of the perception about our parliament perhaps being corrupt or not? And this has been running over the last decade and a half, I think.
You see, I hold the view that Parliament appears to be the strongest body when it comes to these things. They have these laws protecting themselves, privileges, hauling people who are not parliamentarians before the privileges committee and all that, more or less intimidating people from voicing their views on issues that they feel strongly about. And I think that is not good enough. We saw what happened with the judiciary. Why can't Parliament also go in that line if they think that, they are transparent and they are accountable to the people who have elected them? So definitely it's not a good approach. And I think that Parliament needs to change the way it does things. Sometimes even when it comes to enactment of laws, a law gets there and is just being sat down upon, and we don't hear anything about it. And nobody can challenge them on that. The excuse, we have a list of things to do, we are not able to go through all of them. Even when the whole country thinks that a particular law is very important and urgent, it depends on what they want to do. And the executive, in some cases, cannot even compel them to work on such things. And so that is too much power in their hands, and it can be abused, and we need to review that if we have the chance.
But we're told that Parliament is supposed to be, if you look at the principle of separation of powers, an independent organ of government. So why that very suggesting in your last response?
Well, you know that there's no separation of powers with regards to Parliament. If the President has to choose his ministers of state, his ministers from Parliament, so far they're talking about 60 ministers or so from Parliament, some of whom sit in Cabinet and take decisions at Cabinet level and then come to Parliament to vote on them. What do you expect? That they should approve it at Cabinet level, come to the Parliament House and vote against it? So definitely there is no separation of powers between Parliament and the executive, and that is the problem that has more or less weakened the powers of Parliament when it comes to lawmaking and issues with regards to, let's say, loans and all that. Once it comes from the executive, and the executive has majority in Parliament, some of them being ministers, and others looking up to the executive for ministerial appointments, you never have a decision that will go against what the executive wants.
But my last question before I let you go. So then, what do you think Parliament needs to do going forward in looking at the way the Appointments Committee deals with the nominees who appear, and perhaps transparently how they have to deal with them in the eyes of the public?
You see, I think that when a ministerial nominee appears before them, the key issues to look at is, has the person got the qualification? Has the person got the experience, the knowledge to do the work? Is the person nominated to serve in a related, in a field of his or her expertise, or just nominated because he's favorable, he finds favor with the president? They need to look at what is the track record of this person in the past in public service. See, those are the things that they need to look at. But they spend time talking about when were you born, and especially the fellows from Parliament, the jokes they make, it doesn't even look like it's a serious thing. And how many people have ever been rejected by the vetting committee, by Parliament? You can count them, less than 5 since '92. And that shows that the whole process is just a way of meeting the constitutional requirements.
All right. Thank you very much. Vitus Azim, former Executive Director for Ghana Integrity Initiative. And it is the local arm of Transparency International. He's also an anti-corruption campaigner. And speaking to us on the subject of the report of the Joe Gatti-led committee that had investigated the bribery allegations against the chairman of Parliament Appointment Committee. But we have to next, bring in Nomavi Osabwaji, who will be speaking to our own George Rafi. We're looking at the resignation or not of the Bank of Ghana governor. But before then, we have Maxwell Agbagba, who had been speaking to a number of individuals or Ghanaians about what they think about the governor in itself.
Information started trickling in about the resignation of the Bank of Ghana boss. Now, as it stands right now, it is clear that he has resigned from his position. Today, we're on the streets of Accra to find out from some people what they think about the phenomenon of in, high positions and high government positions resigning, and some of them being asked to proceed on leave or resign themselves after a new government take over. There are some people who say that for the purposes of continuity and experience, we would have to delink any partisanship that has to do with such sensitive positions. We are here on the streets to find out from some members of the public what they think about this and what their own views are. Sir, what's your name?
Adani.
Adani.
Adani, yes.
Adani, talk to me. The Bank of Ghana boss has resigned. I'm sure you've heard it.
Yes, I've heard it.
What do you make of?
Yes, my understanding is that since that position is political, the moment the government who appoints you lose power, then you have to go with him.
But I think for the Bank of Ghana boss, he has a tenure, he has a security of tenure. It's not essentially political. His position is not really political.
Then we have to find out the reason for his resignation. Because from my understanding, all those top positions appointed by, which is political appointment, the moment the government loses power, the person has to go. So if his is not political, then we have to find out the reason why he has resigned. Okay. Yes. Then based on that, we'll be able to make our fair analysis.
Okay. Great. I'll come back to you. Sir, your name?
My name is Nyahwasi.
Okay. Have you heard the news or so? And how did you take it?
Yes, I heard the news actually. Well, I should say that it has never happened in the history of the Bank of Ghana before. This is the very first time we are seeing anything like this. For me, he has his personal reasons for resigning. For now, we can't tell whether he's been pushed or he's simply not comfortable with working with this administration. Perhaps that could be the reason. But until we get to know the full facts, which has informed his decision to resign, I mean, it will be very difficult to say something very emphatic.
Okay. Interesting. Well, when this government took over, we saw a floodgate of resignations were actually open, with a lot of people, resigning from their sensitive positions. In fact, some of the positions, we must admit, are political. Some of them too are not political. I want to find out from you, for the purposes of continuity and then the experience that these people get whilst they're in position, don't you think we have to delink, or disconnect, any partisanship that has to do with, such key positions? So, for instance, when the NPP is in power, it doesn't matter who is the IGP. When the NDC is in power, it doesn't matter who is the IGP and all of that.
That is what it's supposed to be, actually, in my view. You see? And before I think that can happen, then there must be a standard by which those people rise to those positions.
All right, views on the streets there about the resignation of the Bank of Ghana boss. It's become really topical. George Riafe is my colleague. He's here to give us some answers. We've been asking lots of questions here on the show this morning. George, good morning to you. Good morning, so, why was he kicked out?
Well, was he kicked out?
That's the question.
I want to throw back to you. Well,
it's been barely a year, right? I mean...
He was appointed April 2016. So close to a year, or barely a year, you're right on that one. But what we understand is that he resigned from that position, or his position, as a governor of the Central Bank of Ghana. Okay.
He addressed the media not too long ago. I think it was...
That was Monday. That could be... because I know normally there's some transitional arrangement, where maybe he might be there for a little while or whatever. So that could be his last public engagement as governor, when he engaged in a list after they chaired the Monetary Policy Committee meeting to review the health of the economy. And he announced that 200 basis point record reduction in the rate at which they lend to commercial banks.
Okay, so you were at this meeting?
Yes, I was.
All right, I want us to play it back, and I have a question on that, so let's just watch.
Persistent increases in food inflation. Persistent increases in food inflation. And of course, the fiscal outturn. There is therefore the need to return to the path of fiscal consolidation to complement the tight monetary policy stance to deliver on the medium-term inflation target. Although growth conditions remain modest, prospects are positive, underpinned by improved oil and gas production from the new oil fields, the original rebound in growth in private sector credit, the gradual rebound in growth in private sector credit, and improved sentiments and expectations. In the outlook, the risks to growth include policy uncertainties, especially in the global environment. In concluding, ladies and gentlemen, the committee viewed the risk to inflation and growth as balanced and decided to maintain the monetary policy rate at 25.5%. The committee will continue to monitor developments and take necessary action, if required, to achieve the medium-term inflation target.
All right, apologies there. This was not the exact last-minute address, if you like, his public address, but he did chair a monetary...
The Monetary Policy Committee meeting that they always do, that is made up of some directors at the bank and external directors as well. Okay. And they met the previous week to review the health of the economy. And then on Monday, he met journalists to do what they call the press conference, explain why they had to cut it by 200 basis points, a record one, of course, and other things came up during the meeting.
So the question is, did you see what came late yesterday from that briefing when you looked at
I think that for everybody who has been following development on at the Bank of Ghana, this thing was coming. It was just about what time and what form would it take. Is the governor going to step aside as in resigning, or government to say that we are kicking him out?
But the governor's tenure is fixed.
It's fixed, all right, but what happened to Bawumia? His tenure was also fixed as well. And now maybe some will say that when you're working with someone in the office and he says that he will not work with you, there's little you can do about it. It makes your work very difficult. It makes your work very uncomfortable because you are supposed to be doing or performing certain duties. So if the other party, that is critical, because when it comes to the economy, it's about the monetary and the fiscal side. And if the person who's managing the fiscal space is saying that it'll be difficult to work with you, so what should you do? The governor is supposed to be part of the economic management team. We understand that he was not being invited or he was not being asked to join. So what do you do? So all these things were some challenges that he's experiencing, and therefore he thought that it would be good to just step aside.
So was this a personal decision, or this was a gentleman's agreement so that there's a package that's going to be given to him?
If you want to play in the rumor mill, then we understand there was more of a mutual agreement between government and the governor. The fact that we cannot work with you and therefore stepping aside, and then you still enjoy your entitlement. But when you also engage persons who are close to the governor and the governor itself, it was purely on personal grounds. And for those who are close to him, he's argued that let's support those who are managing the monetary space right now. Whatever that it can be done, he thinks that he's done his job, and therefore he's moving on.
What kind of person was he as Bank of Ghana governor?
Well, if you engage, we'll call him Nash. If you engage him, I think he comes across as a fine gentleman, a very calm person. And there are times when you hear a lot of things about him and what is being done at the bank. But when you try to engage him personally on it, he comes across as a different person. And you're like, okay, it looks like what is being said about him might not be true. So, and sometimes I struggle because I was like, okay, is this the gentleman that people are saying this thing about him when you engage him at the personal level? And for some of the staff, yeah, he's a nice person and all those things. And some people say that, oh, George, you're a journalist. You don't expect him to be that good to you and all those things. Like, so more of like a very fine gentleman.
Yeah.
And somebody who was willing to work and get things done.
Okay, quickly, who is coming in? We've heard somebody who's related to a political person that we know.
I don't know about the relation there, but Dr. Ernest Addison had worked at the Bank of Ghana for quite a long time. He was the head of research, director of research. Anytime that position, the governor position, has been vacant, Addison was among the top 2 persons who were likely to replace him.
Oh, okay.
So it was expected, and whether maybe some would say that the time was soon, because several times when a position was vacant, we were all thinking
it will be him. It will be him, and then
we go to Dr. Addison. We go to Dr. Addison, and now this administration has settled on him. He's with the African Development Bank. He's a lead economist, and he is jetting into town, and he should be in town this weekend.
Okay, but the rumor mill again that he's related to Philip Addison.
Well, fine, but I'm saying that anybody who knows Addison, Dr. Addison, will know that if I can use the word overqualified to be a governor, he is overqualified to be a governor.
Right.
So let's expect him, all other things being equal, next week he should take over. Should expect a formal statement from government the next few hours about this development. And also the Bank of Ghana as well would also issue a statement about this development and what has happened there. We understand the Council of State is supposed to approve his nomination from the President. So it looks like that is being done, and very soon a statement should come in confirming him as the next governor of the Bank of Ghana. But Mavi, watch this space. There are a lot of things that are going to happen at the Bank of Ghana.
All right, George Wiafe, thanks a lot.
Thanks
and I
so
know
much.
that there will be a lot more to share later on News Desk at 10. But for us here on the AM show, you know it's time for us to say goodbye. So we'll see you tomorrow. Remember, we're opening our money box tomorrow, counting and investing what we've made. Enjoy the rest of the day.